Grogu, we're home. What? Yes, I know this is the Motel 6. Well, everything on Tatooine was booked. Well, this is the best I could do. I'm so sorry. What's up, guys? Welcome back to the review you've been looking for. Welcome back to Project Potter. My name is Kyle, your host. This is our Star Wars in review, guys. We are here for episode 7, The Force Awakens. If you haven't seen the show before, guys, what we do is kind of go over my thoughts on the movie, a favorite character, which is the Force was strong with this one, a least favorite character, which is there was no try, a score of 10, and of course the rankings, guys. So we got our final 3 movies here, sequel trilogy. This is the first trilogy with Disney. Some context here, guys. This is a 2015 film, so even though I said I was doing release order, I forgot that this came out in 2015. And so we did Rogue One and then Solo, which actually both came out after this movie. So just some context here, guys. At the time, we hadn't gotten Solo or Rogue One. Obviously, we hadn't had things like The Mandalorian or Book of Boba Fett. So Star Wars was in a bad place at this time. And so this, I think, restored a lot of the faith in Star Wars. And even though the sequel trilogy and the Disney trilogy, as we call it, has a lot of problems and it's very safe, it does do a lot right in this film, guys. And so I'm going to kind of discuss those. And without further ado, guys, let's go. Okay, guys, so some things I really like in this movie. First of all, Rey's theme. First of all, let me just say, guys, let me get this off my chest, okay? Daisy Ridley, if you're single, if you're available, Daisy, hit me up. You can DM me. You can message me on the channel, watch this video, whatever you want to do. Doesn't matter to me. Seriously, guys, Daisy Ridley, new character, gorgeous human being. She's fantastic. I remember seeing this movie in theaters and just immediately falling in love with Daisy Ridley. I know some people think she's boring and some people don't like her, and her character has flaws, and yes, there's things about the Force, blah blah blah. There's not as many cracks in the foundation as I thought, and so I'll talk more about that in a bit, guys. But there's some just gorgeous shots where she's in like the ruined Star Destroyer, which is amazing, and she slings down, and her theme is incredible, and she slides down. It's like this whimsical little kind of melody here. She puts on the Alliance helmet, which is great, which like reminds us of Luke. And then she speeds and goes into town, and she goes past the Star Destroyer that's just destroyed in the sand or crashed in the sand. And it's one of the coolest visuals that you've ever seen. They later fly through it with the Falcon, which is great, or the garbage as she calls it. There's some really fun moments in this movie, guys. Obviously, Oscar Isaac as Poe is great. He's really, really good. He's not in this movie a lot. That does change for Last Jedi. And then I think for Rise of Skywalker, I don't really remember. I've only seen that once. But he definitely gets more screen time. But Oscar Isaac, man, I mean, what a star now. He's in Moon Knight. I mean, Oscar Isaac is great. He's just really fantastic. The cast is pretty good. We get Harrison Ford back, obviously, as Han Solo, reprising his role, which is great. We get the great Chewie, we're home moment, which I actually forgot about somehow. And that's wonderful. And he gets the line to Rey where he says, like, it's true, all of it, the Jedi, the Force, all of that. And I like how we kind of have the new generation mixing with the old generation here. They're looking for Luke the whole movie, which I think is really cool. And he's kind of like the MacGuffin. And then at the end, we get the shot. And I forgot because I thought we were just going to get Mark Hamill, and who, like, we don't see his face, or he's just in the robe and the movie ends. But we actually do see him turn around. He's got the arm. He takes off the hood, and then he stares at Daisy, and she holds a lightsaber out, and the music goes. And they're on this beautiful, like, I forget where they shot it, but it's incredible. It's like super steep. Like the incline is crazy, and they said it was really windy there, but it's just like an island basically. And I remember there was a Twitter account like Luke the Hermit, and he was like, "Leave me alone" and all that stuff. But it's true. I mean, he clearly like went somewhere where almost nobody could find him, and the whole stuff with like R2-D2 being shut down for a while, and then him having the map at the end, I thought was cool. There are some issues with this movie though, guys. It's definitely not a perfect movie. The relationship between Finn and Rey, I thought was a little weird because they're like towing this line between friendship and romance, and they don't really know which one they want to go down. And so that was kind of strange. I didn't really feel like they had a connection to Han as much. And Rey, she clearly like studied, heard the stories, and she's like, "You're Han Solo." She's like, "Oh my God." She's like, "This is the Millennium Falcon." Finn had like no idea what anything is. I thought his character was really cool. Like a stormtrooper defecting from the Empire is awesome. Like the fact that he's he says, plucked from a family he'll never know. And then he is like, we open up with the stormtrooper, which is such a cool shot where the lights are flickering. And it's like, the stormtroopers will always look amazing, dude. So cool. Like the coolest costume design ever made. And so we see Finn. There's that dramatic moment where the dying stormtrooper like wipes his hand on Finn and he's got like blood across him, and Finn is really scared and he's clearly shaken and he doesn't want to fight. And this is cool because whenever we see stormtroopers, they're just like, we think they're like bad people where they're just shooting over and over and they're just killing for the Empire. And they're kind of forced into that. But Finn is like, dude, this isn't for me. And it's like, I think he said this is his first battle. And he just gets cold feet and he's like, dude, I can't do this. And when they kill all the villagers, he's sitting there and he's like horrified and he takes off his helmet. He's so like shook and he takes off his helmet. And so Captain Phasma is like, FN 2186. She's like, why did you take your helmet off? And she's like, report to my quarters. And then they go back later and he's like, I'm in charge now. I'm in charge now. And I love John Boyega. I don't think this is his best performance, but also it was like a new IP, not a new IP. Sorry. Star Wars is definitely not a new IP. It was the first big Star Wars movie since, remember guys, this was the first Star Wars movie since Revenge of the Sith, which was, I think, 2006. So this was like almost a decade later. And again, we hadn't gotten Rogue One. We hadn't gotten Solo. We don't have any of the Disney Plus shows, obviously. Star Wars not in a great place. And so this movie had a lot of pressure on it. And people were like, Revenge of the Sith, I think isn't that bad, but the prequel trilogy is not very good. And people did not like those movies. And some people hate those movies. So we had two big series, right? We had the original trilogy and then we had the prequel trilogy. And people love the original trilogy. And then a lot of people hated the prequel trilogy. Then we go to this and it's like, okay, so the last three Star Wars properties we've gotten have been mediocre to horrible with the prequel trilogy. Okay, now we have to kind of set this new generation. We have to introduce these new characters, but we want to make it Star Wars, make it what people love. We'll put some new into it. The issue with this movie, guys, is that this movie is just a little too safe. This movie is almost a carbon copy of A New Hope. It's all about, these plans that they give it to a droid. The only thing really, they blow up the Star Killer base, which is just a bigger Death Star. They literally have a scene where it says, this is a Death Star. This is the Star Killer base. And they're like, oh, Han's like, so what? It's bigger. And they have to destroy it. And they don't destroy it quite the same way where they're going in and blowing up like the central port that was put in there in Rogue One. But they go through and they have to take the shield down and then they like destroy all the cylinders and stuff. And it's cool because it like takes the energy from the sun and like uses the planet. And let me say, guys, actually the scene where the Empire, the First Order scene where Husk is like, fire! And it's really, really cool because they have all the things. And he's like, this will be the end of the rebellion. When the Starkiller base fires, the one time we see it fire here, it's really awesome and terrifying. Like when it's got that red beam and then Kylo Ren is in his ship up there and he sees it go by. And then it splits into like 5 different ones. And it's like homing missiles where there's like 5 different moons or 5 different planets. And it takes them all out and just obliterates them. And I was like, oh my God, dude, like, we knew the Empire was dangerous, and we knew the Empire with the Death Star was like, okay, they have that kind of power where they can blow up entire planets. This one's like, hey, guess what? We kind of like iterated on that, and now we have something that can blow up like 5 moons or 5 planets at once, and it's like, oh shit! Like Rebellion's like, yo, we're good. Like, but the First Order is trying to take over, and they need to stop them. And obviously, they have the Kylo Ren stuff and. The Vader tie-in with the helmet there. We get Snoke, which say what you want about Snoke. He's still like a figure. Obviously, not Luke. Leia and Han come back together. There's a lot to like. Again, this isn't perfect. I love the garbage scene where Rey and Finn are running and they're like, oh, why don't we take that ship? And she's like, no, that ship's garbage. And then there's a drone strike or whatever, airstrike. And then she's like, the garbage will do. The ship they're running to blows up. And then they turns and it's like the Star Wars music and it's the Millennium Falcon. It doesn't make sense that Rey just gets in there and she knows how to fly the Millennium Falcon. It's really weird. I love how Finn gets in the what's it called? The cannon seat or the weapons seat. And he's like, whoa. And it's like moving around. That's really cool. After the battle, Finn is like, how did you do that? And she's like, I don't know. I just like kind of knew it. And I didn't like that the first time. I will forgive it a little bit more this time because after Kylo Ren tries to get the map, he knows that Rey has seen the map. They take Rey. He just stops her and then force controls her, puts her to sleep, and then takes her on the ship. And then he goes up and he like knows that she's seen the map and he's trying to get it from her, but she's so resistant. And because they're like, oh, the scavenger got the best of you. And he's like, that girl is strong in the Force, dude. He's like, she's untrained, but she's really strong. And so with that being said, I kind of like the idea that, like, yeah, Rey has never flown the Millennium Falcon, but she's so strong in the Force that she kind of like has a natural ability to like pick it up and go like as she goes. So I know some people don't like that. Some people don't like how powerful Rey is, and they're like, well, I don't want to spoil anything for people who haven't seen the whole trilogy, but we'll get into that at the end of Rise of Skywalker, guys. So the reasoning, albeit I don't think it's great, in Rise of Skywalker, rewatching this, I'm like, okay, it makes a lot more sense now with some of these things that are happening. But yeah, there's some things, again, guys, I don't like, but there's a lot that worked for me in this one. And although it is very cookie cutter, it's very safe. It's I think too similar to A New Hope. It is a good time. It is a good Star Wars movie. It is a fun movie. The forest scene at the end is great too with Kylo. Finn is going against him at first, and he's got the lightsaber, and it's cool when he lights it up. I'm like, oh, let's go, dude. Then he kind of gets bested by Kylo, and then Kylo's trying to take the lightsaber because he's like, that belongs to me. Then he goes to take it and it goes into Rey's hands. And I remember the theater like erupted when that happened. And then she lights it up and she doesn't really know what to do. So she's kind of backing up with the saber, but then she like thinks about the Force and then she takes a moment and then starts using it. And so it's cool that she can tap into the Force, but like Kylo said, she's untrained. So I really like that aspect of it, guys. Obviously, Kylo being the son of Luke and Leia, and then that heartbreaking scene where Han goes out to meet him on the bridge and he says, Ben, and then everything stops and you're like, oh no, you just knew this wasn't going to be good. And guys, let me just say that nothing good ever happens in Star Wars when you have one long pathway with no railings on the side. Everything bad happens that way. That was how Luke found out about Vader, and this is how Han dies. And I'm like, oh, and it's so sad because Leia's like, bring our son home, and Han tells him, take off that mask, you don't need it. And he's like, what do you think you're going to see underneath? And he's like, the face of my son. And he takes it off and he sees him and he's like, your son is gone. And Han is like, no, dude, he's still in there. He's like, it's okay, come home, like we can fix this. And he's like, I know what I need to do, but I don't know if I have the strength to do it. And then he's like, it's okay, come closer. And he holds out the lightsaber and you're like, oh dude, this is not going to be good. And then he just ignites it. And then Han is like shocked. And it's so sad. I remember being shocked at this when they happen in the theater, and he just pushes them aside. And it's a big moment for them to kill off Han, to bring him back and to kill him off. It's a big emotional moment, I think. Finn and Rey are like crying on the balcony, and I know that they like were on his side, but they're like really upset about it. And it's like, yeah, you don't want someone that you like were fond of to die. But I'm thinking like they didn't really know Han, and so Chewie's upset, and I get that. But they kind of just met Han. But, you know, he does say, like, she knows her way around the ship, and Han's really fond of Rey, and he offers her the job to be on the Falcon. So I get it. I don't want to nitpick too much, guys. But, yeah, just off the top of my head, those are kind of the things. I feel like I've already talked too much. But those are the things that I really liked, and maybe some things I didn't like about this movie. Okay, guys, the Force is strong with this one, which is my favorite character. It's Kylo Ren, guys, Adam Driver. I got to admit, guys, when I first watched this movie 2015, I was a young pup. I'm 30 now, and so this was 7 years ago now, which is crazy to think. So, you know, 23-year-old me going in there, being like, oh, whatever, it's a Star Wars movie. Having now watched all of the series Girls on HBO and seeing how much of a force Adam Driver is, guys, he's not even really in this movie that much, and he acts circles around everyone in this film. He's so good. And he takes off his mask, and I love how we don't even see Kylo take off his mask for most of the movie. And Rey is like, oh yeah, you're real tough. A creature behind that, or like a creature wearing a mask is real tough. And then he takes off the mask and she's like, oh shit, didn't expect you to be like gorgeous man here. Like, what's going on? Adam Driver is he's just so good. And I mean, obviously guys and girls, first of all, go watch Girls if you haven't seen Girls. That's a fantastic show. A lot of nudity in there, just fair warning for the kids out there, but go watch HBO. It's a fantastic show. It's amazing. Adam Driver is unbelievable in that show. So I have a newfound respect for Adam Driver after watching that series. He's so good in here where like he's really intense. Like they talk about it in like the behind the scenes and everything, like, oh, Adam's so intense. And I was like, I guess so. But I wasn't really a huge fan of Adam Driver when I first saw this movie. I loved him in the second time where he's getting Rey's face and he's like, oh, he's like the map. He's like, let me have it. And I don't know how to describe it, but he's just really, really intense. And I thought he was the best one. I love how he doesn't really like, he's got huge expectations living up to Vader, but Rey says like, you're afraid you're never going to be as strong as Darth Vader. And he knows that. And so she kind of looks into his mind and sees that, and he can't live up to that. But I love how he's like immature and he hasn't mastered his powers yet. And Snoke says they need to complete his training. So he like has this outburst where he's going around. There's a great scene where the stormtroopers are coming in and they see him blowing, like messing all the shit up. And they just turn around like, we'll come back another time. Like, that's really great. But yeah, I love how he's kind of obsessed with power, and he said he's being torn apart. And I think that part is true, but he knows that he has to appease Snoke, and he has to he's too deep on the dark side that he has to kill his father and throw him aside. And that's all awesome. And I think he has a great arc, and I think Adam Driver is phenomenal. I wish we would have got to see a little bit more of him, but I know he does get more and more screen time as the series goes. So yeah, he's my favorite character for this one. Okay, guys, my least favorite character, there was no try here. It's got to be Finn as John Boyega. I love John Boyega. I think he's an excellent actor. Again, it's not like, this role just wasn't great for him. Like he's trying to like impress the girl where, you know, he escaped. He has like a great reason. Like he does not want to be in this war. He does not want to kill civilians. He sees what's wrong. He leaves, he defects as a stormtrooper. That's an awesome story thread. We've never seen a stormtrooper defect in a Star Wars movie or in a show. And so that's really cool. And then he kind of like, the way he escapes the Empire is weird. He just like gets in a TIE fighter, and then like it's like everyone's against him, but he just escapes. He rescues Poe, but there's not really like, we can guess that he sees Poe get captured, he sees the villagers get killed, and he's like, I don't want to be a part of this. Like, we're doing the wrong thing here. But then he's just like, I'm going to rescue Poe. And I'm like, how did you even know he was a pilot? Maybe he saw him on the X-Wing. I don't know. But it was weird because he like just immediately like wanted to help Poe, and their relationship felt a little bit forced. And they're both great actors, but I just thought that John Boyega felt like he was just a little off. Like, I don't know. He was just kind of stiff in this one where it's like they wanted to push the romance with Daisy Ridley's character with Rey, but they didn't really know if they wanted to be friends or romance. And like, it's like they couldn't push it because it was like a Disney thing. And they were like, I don't know if we can do that. But it was almost like a Luke and Leia, like, are they friends? Are they romance? But like Luke and Leia was much more romantic before they found out that they were siblings. And so this was just kind of like a weird, I didn't really feel the chemistry between Boyega and Ridley really. So it kind of took me out of it for a lot of it. But I do think that John Boyega has better performances in him. I think he's a lot better in probably Last Jedi. But for this particular movie, I just think he was just kind of a weak link. Okay, guys, that brings us to the score. This is an 8.6. This is still a good movie. There's a lot of elements, like I mentioned, guys. It's too close to New Hope. I don't love how similar it is, but they play on nostalgia. They do, I think, a good job of introducing a lot of really fun new characters. I love Rey. I do love Finn, despite, you know, giving him my weakest link. Even though he's the weakest one in this one, I still do like him overall as a character. I love Kylo Ren, dude. I love Oscar Isaac's Poe. I think those are all great. It's really fun to see Han and Leia back in the mix there. Seeing R2 obviously is great, and 3PO, and we get BB-8. The introduction, BB-8, guys. How have I gone this whole review and not talked about BB-8 at all? The little soccer ball that rolls around, dude. And Rey saves him in the beginning, and she's like, he just wants you for Pops. She's like, that's Tito. He wants you for Pops. And I'm like, good job, Daisy Ridley, saving BB-8. And obviously she didn't know he had the plans at the time. So that's how their stories cross paths there. But I think it's just a really fun movie. Visually, I think it's pretty good. It does feel a little safe, which is why I'm not giving this a higher score, because I think it's kind of a New Hope, but a New Hope is done better. I think the storytelling in Rogue One and Solo is much tighter and much better, and the action scenes are better. So it's not perfect, but it does still have some cool moments with the X-Wings coming in and the Star Killer base and all that. But I think this movie does a really good job of setting the foundation. And I know that the sequel trilogy has a lot of issues because JJ did the first one, and then Rian Johnson did Last Jedi, and then JJ did the third one. And so there's not a cohesive story, really. But I do think that this really restored a lot of faith in Star Wars fans. And it was like, oh, Star Wars can be cool again. And Star Wars is awesome. And it's like we kind of remember what is so cool about it. And I really like that there's mention of Luke the whole movie, and then at the end we're like, oh, we got Luke. And then I remember leaving the theater and being like, oh my god, dude, that's Luke Skywalker, and being like, now we have to wait like years and to see what happens. Like, what's going to happen? Is Luke going to train Rey? Like, what's going on? So it's really cool that they leave it on a cliffhanger, and it's like, it just leaves you wanting more. And I think that's a really, really neat part of the movie. And I just think it's a good enough movie that it holds up enough. And even though some parts are a little bit slow, there's a lot of fun, nostalgic points, and there's some funny lines where Han asks Finn, like, what was your role when you were here? And he's like, oh, I was a janitor. And he was like, a janitor? And he's like, and how are you going to get the shields down? He's like, I don't know, I just want to get Rey. And Han's like, dude, people are counting on us. And he's like, yeah. He's like, it's okay, we'll use the Force. And Han's like, that's not how the Force works. That's all really good stuff, guys. But I love that, we think Han's going to go over there. And I don't know if we think he's going to convince Ben, but I, for one, definitely didn't think that Han was going to die in this movie. So that was a shocking twist to me. And so we'll see kind of how that goes through the rest of the series. But I think it's a really solid Star Wars movie overall, guys. And yeah, that's where I'm placing it. Okay, guys, that brings us to our rankings. So no movement at the top. Once again, guys, Rogue One, 10 out of 10. Don't think that's going to be topped. We got Return of the Jedi number 2 at a 9.8. We got A New Hope at number 3 at 9.6. We got Empire at 9.2 at number 4. We got Solo 9.1 at number 5. This one slots in at number 6, guys, followed by number 7, Attack of the Clones at an 8.3. Number 8, which is Revenge of the Sith, a 7.5. And then The Phantom Menace rounding it out at 7.1. So I think this movie is, at the time, I would have said that this movie was higher, but because we've seen Rogue One and Solo before this, and again, this is kind of interesting how it affects my rankings, because I did not do release order like I thought I was doing. I just looked at it, guys, and said original trilogy, prequel trilogy, the two movies that aren't really connected to those trilogies, and then the sequel trilogy. So I forgot that I didn't want to do like Force Awakens and then the two interstitials and then and I think Last Jedi is 2017. So it would have just been all mixed. I like to just go through bang, 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 guys, and do the trilogy. The trilogy is outside of the two interstitials. So had I ranked this one before, it would probably be higher on my list, but having just recently rewatched Rogue One and Solo and loving both of those movies, this one doesn't quite hold up to that, despite it being a larger action, more characters, kind of a bigger scale. But this one, it's a respectable movie. It's a good, solid movie, and visually it's fun. I think the next two films have much better visuals and like stunning visuals, so I'm excited to watch those. But this one is no slouch, and I think it fits in kind of right where it belongs here in this ranking list. All right, guys, that's it. That's another episode of the review you've been looking for. I've been your host, Kyle. Thanks for checking out Project Potter, guys. We got 2 more movies left, guys. We got The Last Jedi next week, which I know is a very decisive film. We'll see what I kind of feel about that. I have some thoughts, certainly, on that movie that might surprise you. And then, of course, The Rise of Skywalker, which I've only seen one time in the theater. And I know that movie is just a mess story-wise. I loved it in the theater. I think that was mostly because of my theater experience. I was excited to see a new Star Wars movie, assuming that I will have different thoughts this time. But I'm keeping an open mind, guys. Appreciate you stopping by. Go check out the other content on the channel, of course. Like, comment, subscribe if you did like the content. And until next time, guys, may the Force be with you.